Alright, just a warning, this is going to be a long-ass video. It's probably going to be 7, 8, maybe even 9 parts, I'm not sure yet. And it's going to be difficult to get through for a lot of you. But, for those that do, there will be many rewards. So, enjoy! Oh, and I'm totally aware that the video quality blows and that the microphone makes my voice sound different, because this is a new camera that I just fucking bought, and it's a piece of shit, pretty much. But hey, you know, whatever. It's the only working one I have at the moment. I'll try and improve on that next time.
Well, good morning.
Wendy Wright?
Yes.
I'm Richard Dawkins.
Very
Very
nice to
kind of
meet
you
you.
to do this interview.
Yes.
Where should we go then?
Well, how's this?
Okay. Concerned Women of America. I've looked up, for America, I do beg your pardon. I've looked up some of the things you're concerned about, and one of them is something I'm very concerned about too, which is Darwin and evolution. But why are you concerned about evolution?
Yes. Well, what a person believes about how human beings were created shapes what they believe about human beings. That if we believe that human beings were created out of love, that is, by a loving creator, and has given each one of us not only a material body, but a spirit and a soul, we then are more likely to treat other people with respect and dignity.
Yes.
In case you hadn't picked up on it yet, this is the "if you think we came from monkeys, you're gonna act like a monkey" argument, just wrapped slightly differently.
But you have to contend with facts, don't you? And, I mean, if evolution is a scientific fact, you might as well be concerned about gravity or the Milky Way, mightn't you?
Yes. Well, there's been an effort within the scientific community to censor out information against evolution that proves that evolution may not be as many scientists believe.
This is only the first of many times she's going to bring up proof or evidence, and I will have a lot to say about it later. But for now, let me just say that science hates to censor information, especially if it's good evidence or good proof, because that's the whole point. Whenever they bitch about Haeckel's embryos, which they will do later on, they fail to mention, they're like, aha, look at how bad science is, and they still teach it. Well, they fail to mention that it was science that realized that science was wrong. You understand?
There have been many times in which evidence that was brought forward to bolster the idea of evolution turned out to be fraudulent.
What's an example of that?
So what we argue for is to teach the controversy. Don't censor out the facts that go against evolution, such as the famous pig's tooth, the tooth that was claimed to be an example of a prehistoric man and turned out to just be the tooth of a pig. There are numerous examples like that. So teach the controversy.
The fact that you guys want to take a couple of fraudulent cases and try to dismiss the entire theory because of it is on par with me saying the Bible isn't right about everything, therefore none of it's right. And you would have to agree, because that's your own fucking argument.
Rather than try and censor out the information that shows
Yes.
that evolution
You know,
is questionable.
Seriously, there isn't a controversy. There may be a controversy within evolution about certain details, but the fact of evolution is uncontroversial. I mean, whether you like it or not, we're cousins of chimpanzees, we're slightly more distant cousins of monkeys, etc. I mean, pig's teeth are really irrelevant. Of course you can dig up mistakes and even outright fraud. I mean, the Piltdown hoax was an outright fraud. But
Yes.
that was never used as evidence for evolution. It was just a particular case of somebody in the 1920s who fraudulently made up a fossil.
There's no evidence of evolution from one species to another. There's microevolution within a species, but not going from one species to another.
Oh, really?
Yay, it's one of my favorite arguments. Microevolution exists, but not macroevolution. Well, then I guess you are admitting that evolution happens. So if evolution happens, then your God has already made evolution. Even if he created Eve out of the rib and all the animals and everything, he created them to evolve? Or did he just create them and then they evolved on their own? You're admitting to evolution, even if it is microevolution. And so you are fucking your whole goddamn argument right there. bam, fucked out of the water. You're admitting to evolution, so your God is okay with evolution already. You just have this, like, but macroevolution doesn't leave any room for my Bible. At least microevolution, I can still shove my Bible in the spaces there and make myself feel better, you sorry sack of shit creationist, and wipe that fucking shit-eating grin off your face, you dumb blonde bimbo bitch.
Actually, you're the way you framed this and your very closed-mindedness really is a very good example of the kind of censorship we see within the scientific community that won't even allow discussion about the controversy, that says that we can't even discuss any evidence that might show that evolution is questionable.
All right, listen up, Bible Barbie. It's not that you have disproven evidence with these few small examples that you've given. You know, scientists have taken that into consideration, and they still consider evolution to be a fact. What the things that you're trying to say that they censor, they don't censor at all. Science cannot censor. Science takes the examples you've given and fucking says, okay, you got some examples. This was actually a pig's tooth. Okay, they admit these things freely. You don't admit when you're wrong, and not only that, you don't give any evidence for your fucking side. None. Not one lick. You don't have any evidence for your side, and you don't have any actual arguments against the actual theory of evolution. All you have is a couple of fraudulent or, you know, accidents or mistakes that you've, through all the years, and you've bundled those together, and you've got a little handful, and you're throwing it at the theory of evolution when it doesn't fucking do a damn thing. You're so stupid, and it's scary that you are the president of a foundation. I don't care if your husband bought it for you. What kind of dumb bastard puts someone as retarded as you in charge of anything?
Where did you study science?
Well, see, that's the point. Scientists are now claiming that they're the only ones that can speak on this issue. And yet when people who look at the evidence go to the Smithsonian Museum on Natural History, and when we look for where's the evidence to show evolution from one species to another, all we find are drawings, illustrations. There aren't the actual material evidence showing it.
There is material evidence of all of these things. What do you think they did? Do you think they made up the dinosaurs too? Oh no, you explain that by saying no, dinosaurs and man had to have lived side by side because they were created the same week. God created all of them. So where's your evidence for that? That's what I want to know. Since science didn't come up with the facts that you wanted, then you went ahead and said, well, that science is just terrible, and they're trying to censor us when we, with no evidence of our own, want to say, fuck your evidence. Well, fuck you, bitch.
So, while there are attempts to say that only scientists can speak on this, what we have are scientists that are then creating an isolated community and saying that we're the ones, it's almost like a religion in which only scientists are allowed to speak and teach on it and to teach everyone else. And everyone else must believe what particular scientists say. But the scientists who question evolution are being censored out, are being blackballed out of the scientific community, and being told that the rest of the world cannot listen to them.
So you're going to tell a scientist who came to your fucking place to interview you that scientists are trying to blackball your side? That's what you're saying to me? You're telling me, you're going to tell the scientist who's there interviewing you that scientists just want to keep you guys quiet. Do you not understand the hypocrisy? Or, no, you don't. You're too fucking stupid. You don't understand your double standards for evidence, and she repeats the same shit over and over and over, and it is fucking frustrating. I don't know how Dawkins doesn't, like, reach over and just slap a hoe. She is right about one thing, though. They don't let morons dictate what is and is not science. They cannot allow this bitch, because she has some emotional attachment to a religion, to therefore say that the facts are non-existent. Duh.
Yeah. I mean, the evidence is actually rather substantial. It's not just fossils, you know. I mean, it's DNA. Presumably you're not concerned about DNA. You accept the existence of DNA. do you?
I think DNA helps to prove that each person is an individual created as distinct from one another.
If you look at the DNA of all animals and all plants, what you find is a beautifully arranged hierarchy. You find that our DNA is close to chimpanzees, slightly more distant from monkeys, slightly more distant still from rats, slightly more distant still from lizards. The whole thing falls into a beautiful hierarchical pattern, just like a family tree. It is a family tree. How would you explain that?
And where is the evidence?
Oh, God. So, here is a bunch of fucking evidence. But where is the evidence? Just because you're too stupid to understand it does not mean it does not exist. Okay, dummy? Seriously. You make me feel bad for you because you are too dumb to wrap your fucking head around evolution. So you will cling to your goddamn Bible and the retarded shit it says. And there are too many people out there just like you.
Well, the evidence is in the DNA.
Excuse me. Where is the evidence of evolution from one species to another species? The macroevolution.
Well, it's in the DNA. It's in the DNA. It's in the geographical distribution
What you're
of
talking
species.
about are commonalities. But again, where's the material evidence of evolution from one species to another species?
Well,
apparently all you need to do in order to prove creationism true is be too fucking lazy or stupid to understand the evidence for fucking macroevolution. All you gotta do is be a complete fucking idiot, and that proves God. Bravo.
we obviously have a different conception of what evidence is. Scientists accept that as evidence. It's overwhelming, massive evidence. But let me come on to something else. It sounds to me as though you've got some kind of another agenda. Is it perhaps that your hostility to evolution, which by the way is not shared by bishops and archbishops and people like that, your hostility to evolution perhaps stems from something emotional? Like, I mean, is it that you feel that evolution, I mean, I've heard people say, for example, tell me I'm related to a monkey, you know, I'm not related to a monkey. Tell people they're related to monkeys and they'll behave like monkeys. Tell people they're related to pond slime and they'll behave like pond slime. Is part of that the hidden agenda behind your rejection of science?
There's no hostility and there's no hidden agenda. We've been very upfront with what it is we believe.
Yes, in fact, right when you started talking, one of the first things that you said after being talked to about Darwin was that you believed that if humans were created out of love, which is an emotion, and that's an emotion that you want there to be.
And the ad hominem attacks that people who favor evolution use against people who don't buy into that, I think shows the lack of confidence in the evidence.
Really? Do you think it's a lack of confidence in the evidence, or do you think it shows how frustrated we are that there can be so much evidence to the contrary of what you choose to believe? You choose to be ignorant. A lot of people cannot deal with that, like myself. You want to choose to be stupid? I want to educate you. You believe the sun goes around the earth, and I'm gonna have to school your ass. It is more frustration than anything. Now, when I call you a dipshit, there is a good reason behind it. It's not like you put up a good argument against evolution and I was just like, blondes are dumb. You haven't done anything. In fact, you've already admitted to microevolution. So you already believe at least half of what I believe in terms of evolution. So technically, I guess we're winning.
If evolution had so much evidence behind it, then those in favor of evolution would not have to be reduced to ad hominem attacks against those who say, show us the evidence, show us what's lacking.
Apparently what is lacking is your knowledge of the theory of evolution, or you're just not being upfront about it. You're just using backdoor tactics to try and get, ram through your point, because these are the last arguments you have left. You can't argue anything else. You just stick to these, and you're not genuine. You're lying for your religion, which is even worse.
Well, I think I'd dispute ad hominem, but I think you could understand a certain annoyance. It's a little bit as though a teacher of classics, I'm talking about education now, in schools and universities. Imagine that a teacher of Latin had to, or a teacher of Roman history had to contend with people coming along and saying, the Romans never existed, the Latin language is a Victorian invention designed to, you know...
And I think that's a perfect example of the hostility that those who favor evolution have toward those who don't buy into the idea, who say, show us the evidence, and yet those in favor of evolution can't show us the evidence that we're looking for.
I'm sorry, but we can show you the evidence. All you need to do is read an elementary textbook of biology. It's all there.
Okay, so this dumb bitch obviously cannot understand that Dawkins' example is to prove how frustrating it is for educators when trying to educate and dealing with total morons that have ridiculous theories and will not accept evidence. But this bitch takes it as, she's like, that's a perfect example of how you or evolutionists are trying to silence us and da 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 da. That's why you came here to interview me, is you're trying to silence me. That's why you came here with a fucking camera crew to interview me on my position, because you were trying to silence me. And you say you got evidence? No evidence. There's no evidence. I've been to the museum. They didn't have the real dinosaurs there. So, take that.
Well, that's interesting you should bring out the textbooks on biology. We still have textbooks today.
Yeah, I know you're going to talk about
show...
peppered moths and you're going to talk about Haeckel's embryos.
No, in fact, what I was going to talk about is what they claim to be the evolution of a fetus in the womb, based on
Haeckel's
hand
embryos.
drawings, which have been proven to be false, and yet they continue to be published in scientific textbooks.
I love that Dawkins, ahead of time, already knows she's going to be bringing up Haeckel's embryos, which is yet another case of science disproving bad science. You understand? Science improves upon itself. Always. That's the whole point of science, is to make it better. The aim is perfection. It is not happy with, oh, I don't know, I got an old book, and that does the trick for me. Lightning is when God fucking is angry, or you know, rain is when God is crying. That's a good enough explanation for me. That's not how science works, you dumbass. Science improves upon science. But my favorite part is that she doesn't even know that it's Haeckel's embryos. He says, you're going to talk about Haeckel's embryos. And she's like, no. I was going to talk about some old drawings of fetuses that have been proven wrong. Yeah, that's called Haeckel's embryos, you dumb fuck.
Haeckel's embryos are just one little thing. It's a Victorian thing. Plenty of people made mistakes in
and yet continues to be published in today's textbooks.
Well, no longer, actually. But I don't think it's really fair, is it, to pick on particular Victorian mistakes. It is a Victorian mistake.
Oh,
I mean,
but it was carried over into the 20th century.
Yes, and that was a mistake, and that's been corrected. But look at the massive evidence that there is today. I can't help feeling that there's some sort of hidden agenda. Maybe I was wrong to say it was a thing about tell people that they're descended from monkeys and they'll behave like monkeys. Is it something else? I mean, is there some other worry that you have?
If you're looking for a so-called agenda, I'll tell you what it is. We believe that human beings should be treated with respect and dignity.
Yes.
And the reason we believe
so do
that,
I, of course.
the reason we believe that is because we can see that God created each one of us.
I don't mean to seem like I'm interrupting her, but she switches points so often that I kind of have to cut her off like this. She just basically admitted that the only reason that she knows to treat other human beings with decency and respect is because we were all created by God. If we weren't all created by God, well, fuck your decency and fuck your respect. Just go to fucking hell.
And what we find is that philosophies that are built on evolution oftentimes lead to horrific abuses against human beings.
First of all, I don't know what philosophies which are built upon evolution you're talking about, but I would also like to point out that the alternative, which is creation, has spawned many religions, which often result in the horrendous mistreatment of human beings. How weird that you didn't mention that. Your double standard is just so huge that you can't even see the other side.
And you can see why, because it's drawn on a foundation that says human beings are just material, and they should be judged according to their utilitarian use. What thing can they provide for society?
Okay.
We don't believe that.
Yes, okay.
We believe that each human being, whether they can supply something to society or not, if they are disabled, if they are young, that they should be treated with the same amount of respect as you and I should be treated.
Yes, I mean, I accept all that, and I agree with that. I mean, I also think humans should be treated with respect. But what we have here is an agenda. It's that you want humans to be treated with respect, and therefore, if the scientific facts go against what your perception is, then you're going to distort the scientific facts. Now, why don't you instead accept the scientific facts and say, but we still want to treat humans with respect. Let's look at evolution, and let's see that we can indeed treat humans with
because
respect
what I go back
within
to,
the evolution framework.
What I go back to is...
Now here's where it starts getting a little bit fun. We've been doing the interview long enough where she is going to now continuously, when asked a question by Dawkins, say, let me go back to, or I'm going to go back to. And what she does is she goes back to the same argument that she's been making over and over and over, not actually addressing any of his questions, just going back to the same few points that she has left. And when Dawkins tries to refute her, oh my God, just get ready for your face palms.
The evolutionists are still lacking the science to back it up. But instead what happens is science that doesn't bolster the case for evolution gets censored out, such as there is no evidence of evolution from going from one species to another species.
I'm sorry, bitch, but science just does not work that way. Science does not work in the way that you want it to. You want bad science to be good science because bad science is the only kind of science that would support your fucking creationism bullshit. Good science cannot, of clear conscience, agree with you, even if it was just to make you feel better. Even if it was the morally right thing to do, because science doesn't care about morality. Science cares about facts. Fucking get it through your goddamn stupid little head.
If evolution had occurred, then surely, whether it's going from birds to mammals or even beyond that, surely there'd be at least one
There's a
evidence.
massive amount of evidence. I'm sorry, but you people keep repeating that like a kind of mantra because you just listen to each other. I mean, if only you would just open your eyes and look at the evidence.
Show it to me. Show me the bones. Show me the carcass.
Show me the carcass? Are you fucking kidding me? This is Jerry Maguire does creationism. Show me the carcass. This is fucking ridiculous. Okay, fine. We've got bones. Do you have Adam's bones? How about Eve's? Do you have any angel bones? Do you have any bones that prove your fucking point whatsoever? Do you have anything, even a remotely, somewhat researched scientific theory for against evolution? It doesn't even have to be creation, just against evolution. You can't even fucking do it. All you can do is nitpick it to some stupid bullshit and then be willfully ignorant to this. Fuck you for having me waste my time and Dawkins' time.
Show me the evidence of the in-between stage from one species to another.
Every time a fossil is found which is in between one species and another, you guys say, now we've got two gaps where previously there was only one. I mean, almost every fossil you find is intermediate with something and something else.
If that were the case, the Smithsonian Natural History Museum would be filled with these examples, but instead they're not.
It is. When we talk about intermediates between species, we're of course not talking about intermediates between modern species. We're not talking about intermediates between dogs and cats. We're talking about intermediates between ancestral dogs and slightly more recent ancestral dogs. Now, in the case of humans, since Darwin's time, there's now enormous amount of evidence about intermediates in human fossils. And we've got various species of Australopithecus, for example, and these are, I mean, some Australopithecus are intermediate between others and ourselves. Then you've got Homo habilis, Homo erectus. These are intermediate between Australopithecus, which was an older species, and Homo sapiens, which is a younger species. I mean, why don't you see those as intermediates?
Evolutionists bear the burden of providing the evidence for those of us who are not scientists to see it. And if the evolutionists had the actual evidence, then it would be displayed in museums, not just in illustrations.
you gotta admire the amount of ignorance this bitch has. She requires so much fucking evidence. Like, she needs to be there in order to slightly even start thinking about macroevolution. Microevolution, fine. Creationists said that was okay, so we don't care about that. But from species to species, oh my god. And so she requires more than just, like, what, fossils and drawings, and she wants the actual carcass in the fucking museum. But at the same time, this is the same bitch that's going to take the Bible word for word. Not even an illustration in the bitch. Just word for word, old ass text. Bam. Word of God. I don't care what you say from now on. That to you is enough. But then all of science and all of the evidence, all you're going to do is sit there and continue to be like, but where's the evidence? Well, here it is. But where's the evidence? It's in the museum. But where's the evidence? See these bones here? Those are evidence. But where's the evidence? You see why someone might get frustrated with your fucking dumb ass?
So what I go back to, though, I think there is a bit of there could be a hidden agenda on the part of those in favor of Darwin. In when Darwin's own words, in which he claimed that there was a difference among the races. And that was then used to promote racism.
Yeah, that's Victorian. Everybody in Victorian
That
times
is the
was racist.
foundation, though. Those who are in favor of evolution often refer back to Darwin.
You think maybe that's because Darwin was the original guy that came up with the theory of evolution? I mean, could it be because he wrote The Origin of Species? Do you think? Do you not refer constantly back to your God when you're doing your creationist bullshit? Because that's what this all leads to. All of this denial of science is really just so you can say, so the Bible's true. When you know, hopefully, that you are being disingenuous about this shit at the very least, if not ignorant at the most. You haven't answered a single fucking question straight. Now you're going to Darwin is a racist. Well, how about your fucking God is a murdering sack of shit?
And he is quite a hero of the evolutionist movement.
He is a hero, but not with respect to racism. Now, I just told you about Australopithecus, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo sapiens. By the way, archaic Homo sapiens and then modern Homo sapiens. That's a beautiful series of intermediates.
You're still lacking the material evidence.
The material evidence is there. Go to the museum and look at it.
So what I go back to again is...
who the fuck cares? What you go back to is that when forced to actually realize that there is evidence, you just got to go back to something. What I got to go back to is Darwin is racist. What I got to go back to is Darwin, evolution is mean. Natural selection is mean. And we want to be loving. All you got to do is look at nature. Look at dogs and cats, how they get along. Isn't it obvious that God exists? Let me go back to some dirt.
So what I go back to again is let's look at what evolution and Darwinism has spawned. Let's look at the philosophies that have come out of it that have been so horrific to our world. So we need to look at the philosophies behind and that have grown out of evolution.
All right, now all you've got to do is explain to me how the philosophies that may have come from evolution disproved evolution in any fucking way. That's all you got to do. Explain that to me real quick. So what you're saying is God cannot exist because there are philosophies, certain people that believed in a God, and you don't agree with them. Therefore, God doesn't exist, right? Muslims are willing to fly planes into buildings. You don't agree with that. They believed in a God. You believe in a God. No God.
And what we find are the societies that are the most loving and caring, the societies that are the most well-functioning, are the ones that have a great respect for human beings, for others, because they recognize that each human being was created individually and is distinct from one another. Interesting enough, regarding that, you mentioned how the DNA is common among various species. But among human beings, each one of us has distinct DNA. In fact, that's the one That's one thing that's quite a way that, sorry, back up.
Bitch, you need to go way back.
That's one thing that scientists will use to determine who has committed a crime, is basing it on the DNA evidence. So even DNA helps to show that each human being was created individually.
Oh, don't you even try and use science to justify your denial of science.
DNA shows that each human being evolved individually. And of course there are individual differences between human beings, genetic differences, otherwise natural selection couldn't happen. Now I presented you with, I don't have them here obviously, but you can go to any museum and you can see Australopithecus, you can see Homo habilis, you can see Homo erectus, you can see archaic Homo sapiens and modern Homo sapiens. A beautiful series of intermediates. Why do you keep saying present me with the evidence when I've done so? Go to the museum and look.
I have gone to the museums, and so have so many of us who still are not convinced
Have you seen Homo erectus?
And I think that this effort, this rather aggressive effort.
An aggressive effort to get you to stop being an ignorant bitch. I mean, you're being just as aggressively ignorant as anyone is being aggressive in trying to educate you. This is not someone with an agenda. He's simply trying to get you to fucking admit that the evidence is there.
To try and talk over us and to censor us seems to come out of a frustration that so many people still don't believe in evolution.
Ding, 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 fucking ding. You got it. It comes out of a frustration that you people refuse to take the evidence you so ask for. You're like, where's the evidence? We're like, here it fucking is. You're like, where's the evidence? And I'm like, I just fucking showed it to you. And you're like, where's the evidence? And I'm like, are you even fucking listening to me? You understand? There's a frustration involved with that. Where you're just like, la-di-da-di, fucking, God'll take care of me. It's freaky people like you that'll fucking take your hands off the steering wheel while you're going 70 and think, God'll steer the car for me. I got a Jesus is my co-pilot sticker. I mean, we call you kind of people crazy. And if you're not crazy, then you're stupid. And if you're not crazy or stupid, then you're just fucking ignorant, and willfully so, which I guess kind of just makes you crazy and stupid together.
Now, if evolutionists were so confident in their beliefs, there wouldn't be the effort to censor out information that shows that evolution is still lacking and is questionable.
Okay, well, here's some just common sense. If evolutionists are trying to censor something, then you must have a hold of that information, right? You must know the information that they are trying to censor, otherwise you wouldn't even know that they were trying to censor it in the first place. So if you have a hold of information that we are willing to censor, why are you not, we meaning evolutionists, meaning people living in reality, if you have a hold of this information and you want to get it out, why not put it out right now? What? We're not censoring you. Put it on out there. What is it? What are we trying to censor? Give us the information right now. Tell us what is being censored by science and evolutionists, people based here on planet Earth.
I confess to being frustrated. It's not about suppression, it's about the fact that I have told you about 4 or 5 fossils and you seem to simply be ignoring what I'm saying. Why don't you go and look at those fossils?
And certainly, if they were in the museums, which I've been to many times, then I would look at them objectively.
You are a liar. You say that you've gone to the Smithsonian Natural History Museum of History, however the fuck you are goddamn say. You said that you've been there, and that now you've said that if there was evidence, you'd look at it objectively. Well, then you keep asking for evidence. Obviously, if you were truly objective about your looking for evidence, you wouldn't just hold science to the only standard of your evidence. You would hold your religion to the same, but you don't. It's only science because it contradicts your religion, which is your fucking motive. Fuck you. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. And here, let me do it for her. But let me go back to the same retarded argument I had before. But let me go back to.
But what I go back to is that the philosophy of evolution has led to ideologies that have been so destructive to the human race.
Not only are you not answering the question, but you yet again are letting your double standard show by saying that science or evolution has led to bad things, and Darwin had led to bad, terrible things, but your religion never did, or any religion for that matter, because you have not as of yet claimed your religion, only creationism or anti-evolution shit. So basically what you're saying is any God is better than no God because you are a weak, simple-minded fucktard.
It's been misunderstood. I mean, even Hitler could be described as a misunderstanding of Darwinism, and that's a grotesque and horrible
eugenicists, and those in favor of euthanasia, and those in favor of infanticide.
But
oh my fucking God! Those in favor of infanticide. Wait, tell me, when did the atheist or the evolutionist or the Darwinist say that I need your firstborn? Oh, is that Bible bullshit? Yeah, kill all firstborn. Murder. Killing the entire world except for Noah, his family, and the ark. Murdering the entire fucking world. Because she hasn't said that she's a Christian creationist that believes in the Bible, but she totally is. And she 100% believes the Bible. That's why she thinks the earth is 6,000 years old, and that there is no evolution. No, science is bad. The science that brought me the video camera that's videotaping my stupidity is terrible. It leads to infanticide. Fucking ridiculous.
wouldn't it be a good idea, instead of pointing to misperceptions of Darwinism, which have been hideously misused politically, if you try to understand Darwinism, then you'd be in a position to counteract these horrible misunderstandings?
Actually, we are oftentimes forced by the aggressiveness of those who favor evolution. It's not as if we are hidden from this information that you keep presenting. It's not as if it's unknown to us, because we can't get away from it. It's pushed on us all the time.
I'm sure it's only pushed on you about an equal amount of time as you spend trying to proselytize or go all anti-evolution on people. You see, until you go anti-evolution, there's no reason to proselytize evolution. Quote-unquote proselytize there on that last one, because you can't really proselytize. I mean, you can. It's called educating. Proselytizing science, otherwise known as educating. Proselytizing religion, otherwise known as don't tell me. I don't want to hear. I don't want to hear. Don't tell me. 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 Don't.
But I think your frustration comes from the fact that so many of us who have seen your information still don't buy into your ideology.
First of all, wipe that shit-eating grin off your fucking face for like the 50th goddamn time. Just smiling doesn't make your fucking point any better. I can sit here and smile to you the whole time I call you a fucking idiot. You're a fucking moron. You got no idea. There are fucking retards in this world with more sense than you. Okay? Alright. Okay. With a big smile. And second, you've shown that you have not looked at the information. You say you've looked. You're like, where's the evidence? Again, there's the evidence. Well, I don't see it. It's right in fucking front of you, you dipshit. And then you're like, well, I looked at your evidence. But you just said you couldn't even fucking see it. Well, I still looked at it, and it was no good. Go God!
Have you seen Homo erectus? Have you seen Homo habilis? Have you seen Australopithecus?
What I've seen is that in the museums and in the textbooks, that whenever they claim that to show the evolution from one species to another, it relies on illustrations and drawings,
no, it doesn't.
Not any material evidence.
And your beliefs stem from ancient texts and old writings, aka the Bible. I mean, what do you want them to do? You want them to put the carcass, as you wanted to be shown earlier, in each textbook? You want them to, what, duct tape a fucking fossil to the back cover of each textbook so that a student can look at it and be like, oh, well, there it is. I see, there's a fossil. Evolution's true. What exactly do you want? Your standard for science is so fucking high, but at the same time, your standard for faith is so low. You're just like, oh, whatever, love, God, evolution can't be true. You're scary stupid.
You might have to go to the Nairobi Museum to see the original fossils, but you can see casts of fossils, exact copies of these fossils, in any major museum.
Well, let me ask you, why are you so aggressive? Why is it that why is it so important to you that everyone believe like you believe?
Bitch, you are the president of Concerned Women for America, which is, the whole point of is to get people to believe as you believe, aggressively. I mean, this is ridiculous, the standard that you have, this hypocrisy that you don't even seem to understand.
Well, I'm not talking about belief, I'm talking about facts. I'm talking about, I've told you about certain fossils, and every time I ask you about them, you evade the question and you turn to something else.
Well, I can say, even if, again, I say that you can name a few of those, but they still don't show. They still don't prove evolution from the slime to the intricate human body.
Maybe that's because your idea of evolution is this twisted view that horses should give birth to dogs, or monkeys should give birth to crocodiles, or some twisted shit. What do you want? Do you want the fossil of in between slime and human? Because we've got like the pretty much middle of that. We just don't have the, like, what do you want? Like half slime, half human? You're fucking retarded.
Well, there should be, if we had gone from that broad of an evolution, there should be overwhelming tons of material evidence, not just an isolated thing here. But again, there is not evidence.
But again, there is evidence. There is evidence. You're just too goddamn stupid or willfully ignorant to goddamn well look at it with an actual open fucking mind. I mean, I grew up Christian. I was Catholic, which a lot of Christians will say, that's not great, it's Christian. And I don't fucking care that I did. I grew up, I grew past it, I learned, I accepted the facts. You, however, have refused to do that. You've stayed in this like 12 or 13-year-old mentality where like Santa Claus is still real. And no matter how many times someone shows you a video of your parents putting the fucking presents under the tree, you're just like, it's Santa Claus and he changed the videotape just to trick me. And you have no evidence. You have no evidence.
I happened to pick human hominid fossils because I thought you'd be most interested in them. But you can find similar fossils from any vertebrate group you care to name. Of course, there are lots.
But I guess I go back to...
Well, I guess you're going to go back again. Better keep going way, way back.
Why is it so important to you that everyone believe in evolution? Why do you seem to almost feel like it's dangerous for people to believe that human beings were created individually and with a distinctness and created by a creator?
Well, why is it so important for you to have people that don't believe in evolution? Why is it so important to you to disprove evolution? Because it would make your God a bunch of bullshit and you know it? Oh, so you have an ulterior motive.
Why is that?
I don't like the word belief. I prefer to just ask people to look at the evidence, and I'm asking you to look at the evidence.
Well, and I'm asking you, why does it seem so dangerous to you? Why is it so important to you that people not believe in a creator?
I can think of a few good reasons. Number one being people who don't believe in a creator don't fly planes into buildings in the name of their creator. Nobody's flown any planes into any buildings in the name of evolution. Nobody's killed anyone else in the name of evolution. Nobody has said, in the name of evolution, and then plunged a knife into someone else's chest. You dumb fucking cunt.
No, that's not the point. I mean, the point is that as a scientist, I'm concerned that children in American schools and in schools elsewhere should be exposed to the evidence and allowed to make up their minds about the evidence.
And we completely agree. In fact, that's why the challenge in America, whenever this debate comes up, is teach the controversy, teach the evidence, because as it is now, in many cases, school children are only being taught about evolution. They're not being taught about the frauds in evolution and the lack of evidence in evolution. So it's actually us who are arguing for teaching all the evidence, not just the ones that are favorable to evolutionists.
No, your problem is that the facts don't align with what you believe. The facts contradict what you believe, in fact, and you have a hard time dealing with that. So you try and come up with other facts that contradict the true facts. I'm not going to sit here and be like, you know, evolution is the truth, because truth has lost its fucking meaning thanks to people like you.
Well, you could say which controversy. I mean, there are, of course, other creation stories than Genesis. Do you believe that the world is young, for example? Do you believe the world is less than 10,000 years old?
Well, I believe that God created the world, and the time frame, it can be unknown. As we look in the Bible, it's hard to know what a day, the length of time that might mean in that context.
Does anyone else find it amusing that the Bible can't even justify how long a day is, whereas science knows exactly how long a day is? It's 24 motherfucking hours. There's no misreading it. It's exactly how long it is. There's no, oh, it took this many years. Oh, but we don't know how long a year is in that context. No, we know exactly how long a year is, you dumb bitch.
So what I go back to, though, is the human being, because that's like what I think we really care about, are human beings.
Yeah, we care about humans and how we got here, which you are doing a very, very poor job of explaining.
And are human beings created through the loving touch of a creator, or just came out of slime?
Well, if you were to talk to a bishop, the bishop would probably say, yes, human beings were created by a loving creator, but he used evolution in order to do it. I mean, that would be the position of the Archbishop of Canterbury.
And that does show that there's a variety of opinions across the board among those who may not buy completely into the hardcore ideas of evolution.
Please do us all a huge favor and explain what these hardcore beliefs of evolution are that people are not ready to buy into if they accept evolution and just say it was a God who started the process in the first place. They are not denying evolution at all. Evolution is the process by which life evolves. It is not abiogenesis, where we're talking about how life began. There's two very separate things. You are denying evolution, or at least macroevolution, because you've already admitted to microevolution, because it fucks with your belief system. And it's as simple as that. And you know it. And you're being disingenuous, dishonest. You are lying. You ever told a lie? Well, you already think you're a dirty sinner. I don't have to convince you, you fucking idiot.
There are those who believe in different levels of evolution within creation, and that really shows kind of a creative independence.
No, what it shows is a struggle for people to try and base their beliefs in reality with scientific evidence and fact. You see, what they're trying to do is make it so that they can still believe their bullshit even though they know that evolution is a fact. You do that with microevolution. You're like, well, obviously chihuahuas were not made by God. But that's microevolution. They're not changing species. Because you're so stupid that you think that if you take little steps, one after another, that after a year, you're not going to have moved anywhere.
Within our movement, that seems to be a bit lacking among those who believe in evolution and only evolution.
But as I've just told you, there are bishops who believe in evolution. Indeed, just about all bishops believe in evolution. And they would say
you would have to clarify what denomination of bishops,
okay,
to say
well,
a broad
let's say,
term like that.
But the ones I'm familiar with are Anglican
there you go.
and Catholic. But that's okay. I mean, there are certainly lots of very, very senior church people who do believe in evolution, and so there is a broad, I mean, there are those, and there are others who are not bishops, but who are scientists or also Christian, or also Jews, and who believe in evolution, but who think that the idea of God kind of intervening in this sort of conjuring trick way is rather blasphemous. I mean, I know evolutionist colleagues who are also devout Christians who think that it's to the greater glory of God to study the way science actually is, rather than to try to bring God in as a kind of magician who kind of, waves a wand and things happen.
Yeah,
Isn't that rather
I think,
demeaning to
I
God?
think, and that is a misinterpretation, misframing of what we believe.
How is that a misframing of what you believe? God is your ultimate magician. He spaketh, and it was so. That's all he had to do. He created the heavens and the earth before he created light. That's some fucking hell of a magic trick right there. That's one hell of a magician. How is that misframing your shit? He created man out of dirt. He created Eve out of one of man's ribs. How is that, to you, not magician type shit? I'm just curious here. How did he misframe any of that? Or is that just something that you say is a defense mechanism?
We believe that God can and does intervene throughout history and in life. And we see that as like a loving father that's involved in his family and his children. It's not that the father is dictating everything to his children, what they can and cannot do.
So your God didn't give Moses the 10 Commandments? No? Am I missing something here? Your God didn't make up all the rules? The Bible isn't full of all kinds of crazy rules about how you can and cannot live your life, right? It's not like a dictator telling you what you can and can't do, except for that's exactly what it is. Except for he's God, so to you he's not a dictator. He's like your best friend that forces you to do everything and tells you how to live your life.
As a Christian, I believe in free will, that God created us with the ability to make our own decisions. Some of those decisions are bad decisions, some are good. And so to say that God intervenes in our lives, even in the creation, well, perhaps even especially in the creation of our life, is reflecting a belief in a very loving God.
You conveniently left out all the parts about burning in hell if you do choose to use your free will and not believe. He gave you the free will to get an education and learn about science and not be dumb enough to listen to people like Wendy fucking Wright and think that there is a God like him. But if there is, he's going to punish you for all of eternity because he loves you so fucking much.
Yes. And there are others who'd say that God set up the laws of physics, the laws of the universe, and he did it in such a cunning way that when the time came, evolution got going and eventually produced us. Isn't that a rather grand and noble vision of God?
It is, and in fact, we believe that as well. We believe that science is unlocking the mysteries of the laws put in place by God, that God created this earth with certain laws like the law of gravity to allow it to function, and that science is actually is discovering and unlocking the secrets of the laws that God put in place.
Among which are evolution, which follows from the laws of chemistry and physics under the right conditions.
So,
and that could be the working out of God's purpose, couldn't it? Couldn't evolution be the working out of God's purpose?
And there are many people who do believe that God does use a form of creation where evolution is a part of that. The evolution of back up on that.
Okay.
The evolution of back up on that. That there are people, there are many people who do believe that God intervenes in this world and uses various laws like gravity or progression to create a more stable world, a better world.
So what you're telling me is you believe that your God directly intervenes to improve the world, like doing things like, you know, mutating viruses so that medicine doesn't treat them anymore, and they kill lots and lots of people. What a loving God. He reaches down there and fine-tunes the earth so that, like, you know, flu vaccines don't work, the flu mutates, new strands, things like that. Oh, I mean, come on. There's such fine-tuning. I mean, that and chihuahuas. He made the chihuahuas, too. And chihuahuas are cute, so it balances itself out. Okay.
So, I don't think that there is much, I don't think there should be as much dissension between our camps. that we can come to respect one another. In fact, we do. We respect evolutionists for their beliefs. What we would hope is that there would be as much respect on the evolutionist part toward us so that we could have a dialogue without being reduced to ad hominem attacks and accusing others of having hidden, secret, hostile agendas.
First of all, bitch, you're the one accusing Dawkins and evolutionists of having the backwards, tactics. Like they want, I don't know, to mass murder people in the name of evolution or be racist in the name of evolution. These were your baseless fucking attacks. And then you turn around and say, oh, we just want, you to respect us as much as we respect you. Well, fuck you. Fuck you. I don't respect you. I don't respect your bullshit backdoor tactics, not being upfront about anything, not answering any of Dawkins' questions, sidestepping everything, asking for evidence and then ignoring it over and over again, going back to the same arguments over and over. It is fucking bullshit, and you fucking know it. You just get by on the skin of your fucking teeth with this shit, and I don't know if anyone takes you seriously. Even creationists have to get that, secondary embarrassment where you're watching someone that you're so embarrassed for them that you have a hard time. You are that person for everyone watching this video, and hopefully some brighter fucking creationists out there. If there are any creationists out there and they're like, oh yeah, well just listen to When Do You Write? Holy fuck. Keep it up. Keep it up, bitch. You do more for evolution and atheism than I ever could. That's for damn sure.
I don't want to be respected for my beliefs. I want you to respect the facts. I want you to look at the facts. Don't respect me. I don't want respect. I want you to go to museums and look at the facts. And don't believe what you've been told, that there is no evidence. Just go and look at the evidence.
Yes, and
it's
what
not
I would
funny.
say...
I mean,
yeah.
Really, go and... I've told you about hominid fossils. You can go and look at the evolution of the horse. You can go and look at the evolution of the early mammals. You can go and look at the evolution of fish. You can go and look at the transition from fish to land-living amphibians and reptiles. Any of those things you'll find in any good museum. Just open your eyes and look at the facts.
And I would say open your eyes and see the communities that have been built by those who believe in a loving God who created each one of us.
Dawkins is like, you asked for evidence, I give you the evidence, and she says, but I would say, look at how much nicer it is in church. Isn't it nicer in church? So therefore, your evidence is no longer valid. Because I like to smile, and people at church are nice. Therefore, the Bible's real. Fucking airhead. She's so stupid. She cannot fucking even form an argument that is even close to it. She can sit there and dispute the age of the evidence or just say that they were, retards, birth defects. Say something that at least addresses what he's talking about. It's just like right over your head. You just don't get it. God damn, bitch, you are killing me.
And what I find is that is the kind of world that most of us would want to live in.
This is the closest you're going to get to the truth from her. Her argument is that a world created by a loving God is the world that people would like to live in. Therefore, it must be true. Little kids would like to believe in Santa Claus, so he's real. I'd like to live in a world where superheroes are real. Not only that, but I'd like to have superpowers. That would be the kind of world I like to live in. In fact, I wish I could fly. So I'm gonna go stand on top of my fucking roof and throw myself off. You dumb fucking cunt.
One in which there is a deep respect for other human beings because they are created by a loving God. However that creation came about. You could have your beliefs, we can have our beliefs, and both can be based on on evidence, even the same evidence.
No, I'm not gonna let you fucking steal scientific evidence. I know that you guys love to do that. You look, like she said, at the same evidence that a scientist presents you, and you take that as evidence for God. The Earth has an elliptical orbit. Well, God did it that way. It's obvious that God made the Earth an elliptical orbit. But I'm not going to let you hijack scientific evidence from a bitch who won't accept any fucking evidence for evolution at all. I'm not going to let you hijack and try and say, oh, but the evidence proves creation. Fuck You can be a shitty scientist on your own fucking time. I ain't gonna let you fucking fuck with the evidence here. You want to believe you're retarded shit, go for it. But you want to sit there and say, oh, well, the evidence can prove both are true. Using the same evidence, we can prove creationism from the evidence that you provided me for evolution. No. Bullshit. And you just denied all of that fucking evidence, so don't try and now turn around and say, oh, well, yeah, even if it is there, then it's from God, so there.
But I think fundamentally, where our differences come down to is whether there was a creator or whether there was not a creator.
I liked one phrase you used there. You talked about the sort of society in which we wish to live. And I'll tell you quite freely that a society based upon Darwinian principles is exactly the sort of society I do not wish to live in. Mm. It would be a terrible society. It would be a sort of George Bush kind of society, if I can put it like that, or Margaret Thatcher kind of society. I do not wish to live in a Darwinian world. I do, however, respect facts, and I do recognize that the facts of science show that the world of nature is a Darwinian world. It's a very unpleasant world. It's a thoroughly unpleasant world, not the kind of world we wish to live in. So let us understand it so that we can construct the kind of society in which we wish to live, which will be a non-Darwinian society. It will be the sort of society which departs from Darwinian principles. A society that was based on Darwinian principles would be a ruthless, free market economy in which the rich trample the poor, in which it would be the sort of opposite of a liberal socialist society, in fact. In a way, I'm rather surprised, if we're talking politics, that the right wing in America is so hostile to Darwin. If we're going to be naive about applying science to politics, you ought to be in favor of Darwin. I'm against Darwin where politics is concerned, but you cannot argue with scientific facts.
You actually helped to make my case quite well, and that is that a philosophy that is drawn out of Darwinism would be extremely brutal, and in fact has been.
Does she not realize that, like, you know, America was founded before the theory of evolution was around? She probably doesn't. She doesn't seem to understand much at all. She seems functionally retarded, is the kindest way I can put it.
That has been the experience.
I've just said that. I've agreed with that.
And
yes.
that's why the societies that have been built on a viewpoint that God created each one of us, however he did it, that's part of the science of unlocking, of discovering how that was done. But recognizing that there is a loving creator helps to build a society that is more than just livable, but pleasant.
First things first, I just heard her say creator, like a normal person. She wasn't all like creator, like a freaking tard bust. Listen again.
But recognizing that there is a loving creator.
Now all you have to do is continue to say creator like that instead of creator, and drop that freakish smile off your fucking face, and open your mind a little bit, and you're on the right fucking track, you dumb bimbo. She seems to not remember or think of any of the past societies or current societies that are built around God, like, let's say, you know, Islamic countries, you know, where it's run by Muslims and they stop everything to pray 5 times a day and stuff. Those are not always the happiest societies. She's just in some kind of la-la land. She doesn't understand that people go to war over this God shit. Or she does, and she just chooses to ignore it. It's scary that it's all just like, oh, God is love, and 9/11 happened because people just need to believe they came from a loving creator. Those people believe that. And their loving creator told them to kill people like you and people like me.
At Concerned Women for America, we have state chapters and even more local chapters. And one of the things they've been involved in is the debate over teaching evolution or intelligent design in the schoolrooms.
Let me get this straight. Do you have people that you train, and these are the people that are debating whether they should teach evolution or intelligent design in schools? And people wonder why Americans get laughed at. We're going back. It's like we want to go to the Dark Ages. We want to regress. I mean, that's what conservatives want anyway. They want to go back to the Leave It to Beaver time back in the 50s that never really existed, but in their heads it was just better back then. It was just always better. It was better when they didn't have their fucking BlackBerry. Or it was better before the pacemaker that's keeping their ass alive right now.
And the position we've taken is teach the controversy. Teach all the information, not just selected information that promotes one viewpoint, which most of the times that's evolution.
I love how she's upset because most of the time they only teach one side, and it's the side with all the facts and the evidence and the proof and all the research put into it. It's those guys who get taken seriously. Not the dipshits that think the world is 6,000 years old and they go around speaking in tongues. Who would have fucking thought? Who would have thought, you dumb fucking bitch?
But let's teach all the information so that the school children can learn how to think for themselves and come to their own conclusions.
Unfortunately for you, that's not how school works, or it's not how it's supposed to work. The math teacher doesn't teach the kids 1 + 1 = 2, or 1 + 1 = 3. It's up to you to make up your mind. And then if the kid says 1 + 1 = 3 later on in the test, it's not wrong. He made up his mind. That's what he chooses to believe, and therefore it's reality. And think of all the poor students, because they're going to flunk out of higher level courses later on. Either that or they're going to have to pull twice their fucking weight because they didn't learn anything in fucking high school, because dipshits like Wendy fucking Wright are trying to shove intelligent design into the fucking schools.
Nobody could possibly object to teaching children to think for themselves.
I wish that were the case, that people would not object to teaching all the information or teaching children in a manner so they can think for themselves. But sadly, there's been a very heavy-handed effort in the United States to clamp down, not allow any teaching that is contrary to evolution, even to the point of court orders.
When you say teach the controversy, it would be nice. I mean, of course, scientists teach controversies all the time. There's a lot of controversy in science. There's evidence on one side, there's evidence on the other side. In this case, however, we have a very large amount of evidence in favor of evolution. But the evidence on the other side is not evidence in favor of anything else. It's actually looking for little gaps. It's looking for little things that allegedly evolution can't explain. Say, look, we found something they can't explain. That must mean God did it. That's not really, doesn't sound like science, does it? That sounds like looking for gaps.
If it's evidence, then scientists should be in favor of teaching evidence, even if they may discount the evidence, even if they think it's inconsequential. As a scientist, scientists should be committed to teaching truth.
Yes, scientists are committed to teaching the truth. That is why they cannot go ahead and lie for you like you want them to. They can't lie and be disingenuous about shit like you are. They can't just sit there and shove the Bible and things they don't know into gaps that they don't know. All they can say is, we don't know for sure. But here is the evidence and the proof that we have. When there's a false piece of evidence or something's fake or it was a mistake, it's always science that figures out that it was a mistake. Science corrects itself. Creationism has never improved science one fucking bit. All you try and do is break it down. So don't fucking give us that, oh, well, you should be committed to telling the truth. Doesn't your Bible tell you to fucking not lie? So shouldn't you be committed to a little bit of truth instead of just using backdoor tactics to try and avoid coming to terms with reality so you could stay in your little fucking Bible bubble?
I think you didn't understand what I said. I said on the one side there is evidence. On the other side there is a looking for apparent lack of evidence. There is no positive
But that is what
evidence,
science is about. Science is taking a theory and challenging it to see if it can stand up.
She doesn't get it. She does not get it. She does not understand. She don't understand, boss. She don't get it. It's over her head. He's like, we are trying to show you we have positive evidence, and from that evidence we have determined that, evolution is a fact. Your problem is that you're looking for a lack of evidence instead of producing positive evidence for your own claim. You're only looking for holes in our evidence in order to prove your claim correct. You know what I'm saying? It makes no fucking sense. And she doesn't get it. She's, but if you teach both sides and teach the controversy and science has to teach the evidence, well, fucking duh. If science didn't look after the evidence, or they had found something wrong with evolution, they would have fucking corrected themselves by now. They would have admitted the goddamn mistake. Science does not have pride like you and your religion. When science is wrong, science says, that was wrong. But some scientist comes along and corrects it. Whereas you have this fucking thing called pride, which you're not supposed to. It's one of the 7 deadly sins. And your pride will not allow you to say that you are wrong or to say that you don't know. You just have to be like, no, I know everything. I know everything. I know how old the earth is. I know that the whole Bible is true, however I choose to interpret it. And if, you know, I know that a year in the Bible could be any amount of time according to the context, because I could just make shit up and pull it out of my ass, and I'm a fucking super history buff because I'm Christian. You're so frustratingly ignorant. Literally. Wouldn't be surprised if you were thirsty at the end of this interview, walked into the bathroom, lifted up the fucking toilet lid, and stuck your fucking head in the toilet and started lapping up fucking water.
That's right.
And so while people may not like when the evidence doesn't stand up to further testing, but that's what science is about.
Yes.
What further testing have you done? What further testing on evolution have you done? You won't even say that there is any evidence. So how could you possibly have done any further testing on the evidence in order to disprove evolution? I am going to fucking have an aneurysm. God damn it.
Well, that is what science is about, but there are no cases known to me, at least, where science, where it doesn't stand up. I mean, there are cases where work needs to be done, and of course science flourishes on finding places where more work needs to be done. That's how science advances.
Mm-hmm. As you mentioned, what's known to you. And I think that's why we need variety of people looking at theories and challenging it, because if it's one person who's dictating what can be challenged or can't, or what evidence is substantial or not, then we have a dictatorship.
So what you're saying is that you shouldn't just let the biologists talk about biology. You should let any fucking retard out there like yourself go ahead and speak about biology. Why not go ask someone who's never picked up a Bible to go teach about Christianity? Because you can't just have people that have read the Bible teaching about Christianity. You know, that's just a dictatorship. Oh, but you know, you gotta make sure you have people that absolutely have no clue what the fuck is going on and have them put their 2 fucking cents in. You're out of your goddamn mind. You know, you can't just let doctors operate on sick people. You gotta let people just kind of go at it. You know, I played that game Operation. I know how to fucking remove, dude, open heart surgery and all that good shit.
In science, scientists should be free to challenge theories and not be hemmed in, not be restricted by the current zeitgeist of those who are almost the high priests of science.
Well,
no, you dumb fuck. They're not almost like the high priests of science. You fucking retard. Everything's got to be like tied into fucking religion with this dumb bitch. She's like, but people shouldn't be ostracized for having different ideas. You don't think that back when evolution was just starting to get evidence that there weren't people that believed in evolution and thought they were fucking crazy? No shit.
Of course, he's right. I mean, I agree with that. But can you point to any positive scientific evidence in favor of creation?
I think the fact, as you pointed out, DNA, I think DNA helps to show that each one of us are individuals. And
yes, but they have to be individuals
distinct.
for evolution to work. I mean,
I don't think that's the case. I think
well,
that the fact that each one of us are distinct, that no 2 of us are exactly alike, that helps to show that there is some intervention at the point of each person's creation.
You heard her. Her positive evidence for creationism and there being a creator, using her pronunciation there, is DNA. She's going to use science to fight science.
Some intervention at the point of each person's creation.
do you know about the Darwinian theory, that it's about individual variation being selected? There has to be individual variation or Darwinism wouldn't work.
What also seems to be shown in the scientific evidence is that mutations die out. And we don't have good evidence of positive mutations being the ones that are then built on, because if they're a mutation, they're alone. So in order for something to rise up and have more of it, you need to have a good base to choose from. For example, a recessive gene in a person. Both parents may have brown eyes, and yet a child may have blue eyes. And that's because there's enough of the gene in their ancestors to have brought out that recessive gene.
A creationist telling an evolutionary biologist about genes, recessive genes. This is fucking hilarious.
And that's evidence against evolution?
I think that helps to show the individual nature of each person, that God created us with genes, with DNA, and that He'll even use that to show His creative element in each person. The fact that you can have two people, a man and a woman, could have 13 children, 16 children, and each one is completely distinct from one another. That shows that even though they came from a common parentage, that yet there's still a creative element for each one of those human beings.
Unless they have twins, dumb fuck. Do you mind to explain that?
Do you actually know what Darwin's theory of natural selection is?
I think I know enough because it gets pounded into us by those who simply won't allow for other information, that don't want other information to come forward.
I won't do any pounding, but just let me tell you what it is. There is individual variation. Every individual, apart from monozygotic twins, is different from every other individual. That's absolutely fundamental to the Darwinian theory. Now, what happens is that among that variety of individuals, some survive better than others, some reproduce better than others. That's how we get evolution. You couldn't have evolution unless there was individual variation. You must not keep thinking that because there's individual variation, that's somehow evidence against evolution.
So I come back to you, and why do you reject the idea that there is a creator who's involved in the creation of human beings, whether it was the initial creation and then he left, or is involved in the creation of each human being who's ever lived on Earth?
Well, as I've said, there are plenty of ways in which God could be involved in creation of the universe, in creation of life, but Darwinian natural selection demands individual variation. That's why you must stop using individual variation as evidence against evolution. It's evidence for evolution.
Once I was going through the Smithsonian Natural History Museum with dear relatives of mine, and one of them was a severely handicapped little girl who can't do anything for herself. She can't talk, she can't walk, she can't feed herself, she can barely sit up.
Oh, please don't let her use a severely handicapped little girl to make her point about how there's a loving and caring God. Please, please don't let her be that fucking stupid.
And when one of the people I was with turned to me and said, "Do you believe in evolution?" And I said, "I think this little girl is a perfect example of why evolution is wrong. Because here's someone who cannot take care of herself, and yet she has a spirit. She's not just a material being." And that's one difference I find between the ideology of Darwinism and evolution and those who believe in a loving God, is the idea of a spirit and a soul that is not material, and it's something that it makes us distinct from animals.
I'm starting to feel bad because I'm pretty convinced that this bitch is functionally retarded, and I'm not even kidding. She just doesn't seem to understand. Her arguments just go all over the place. They make no fucking sense. She's like, well, you know, I know a handicapped little girl and can't feed herself or do anything, but that proves that there's a spirit or a soul, and then from there, that's what separates us from animals, because obviously animals are just inherently evil. God created them just with no souls. You know, it's fucked up the way that you think that you know how everything was done, and yet you are so fucking stupid. And you remind me of pretty much every religious person out there. They think they know exactly how it fucking happened without actually knowing jack shit and just ignoring all the facts. It's really fucking sad and infuriating, frustrating, pisses me off.
Do you think that children should be taught critical thinking at school?
In fact, that is what we argue for, is that children to be taught evidence so that they can decide for themselves, so they can figure out for themselves what is truth.
Well, see, we don't really care too much about truths around here. We care about facts, you know, evidence, actual, because a truth is only something that you can make someone else believe. If I can convince you that, you know, I'm black, and you believe it, then it's true to you, and it's the truth when I call myself, you know, the brother man. That's what I'm saying. You can only you can only deal with the facts as they are, trying not to twist them in order to form your own realities and truths like you have, Wendy.
Right. Do you understand what I was saying when I was explaining about natural selection requiring individual variation?
I do, but I also come back and I haven't heard you answer whether you have a problem with this idea of God being involved in the creation of each individual human being, not just perhaps being the one that got it all started.
So Dawkins asked her, do you understand the science that I'm trying to talk to you about right now? And she says, yes. And why do you have a problem with theism over deism? I mean, she doesn't, where's she coming from? She's out of the fucking left field. She's so fucking whacked out. Anyone else in that office that works for her should feel embarrassed. But those people are probably stupid enough that they're like, yes, they think she's doing an awesome job debating this evolutionary biologist. It's fucking pathetic.
Well, I do have a problem with that because I've seen the evidence and I know that individual variation comes from genetics, it comes from DNA, and I know where it comes from, and it's a very well worked out story. It's in every textbook. I mean, we differ because we have different genes.
And do you
genes. Sorry, go on.
Do you believe in a spirit or a soul?
I believe in a spirit or a soul in the sense of my own consciousness, which is a manifestation of my neurons and my brain physiology. I don't believe I have an immortal soul, no, but
Okay.
That's my personal belief.
And what about a disabled person who is severely mentally disabled and is not able to make choices? Do they have a spirit? Are they a human being?
Better yet, I've got a question for you, Wendy, right? Does a disabled person, a severely retarded person who cannot take care of themselves, would them having a soul really make up for the fact that a loving, caring God made them that way? You see, if you believe in evolution, you can say, well, you know, that occasionally you get a fuck-up, and we feel really bad for these fuck-ups, and we try and take care of them and make them as comfortable and happy as possible during their lives. However, if you believe in your loving creator, that means that your God specifically fucked that little girl up. Said, here, you know, here's a perfect human being. Wow, there you go. Fucked you up because I'm a loving creator. And what is it? Some kind of test for their parents? I mean, what kind of fucked up God do you fucking worship, you cunt? You really piss me off by bringing up a handicapped person as an example to prove your point. It's fucking sick.
They're a human being. They belong to the species Homo sapiens. Their ancestry is Homo sapiens, so of course they're human beings, yes.
And do they have a spirit or a soul?
It's not a meaningful word. I mean, they have a spirit or a soul in just the same sense as I have, but I only have a spirit or a soul in a very much different meaning than your meaning.
The way I understood you to say it, it's because of your conscious, or even your consciousness, which would be different things. But for someone, though, who is not capable of making decisions, do they have a spirit or a soul?
Well,
fuck, why are we wasting our time with these pointless fucking questions? I'm not any evolutionary biologist by any stretch of the imagination, and I am wasting my time by dealing with this. Much less Richard fucking Dawkins having to answer whether he believes in a fucking soul the same way that Wendy Wright does. So something totally unproven. You know, do you believe in the pink unicorn? Or the fucking teapot? It's all that matters is that you believe. As long as you believe the same bullshit I do, you know, we're okay. But you believe in evidence? If you don't have faith? You don't think you have a soul? I mean, this is all retarded bullshit. Retarded, dark age bullshit that is somehow permeated through the fucking cracks of retardation and ended up with people like Wendy Wright and most other creationists.
if you mean somebody whose brain is so disabled that they have no consciousness at all, then they have no consciousness. I've answered your question.
Well, no, because a spirit or a soul is different.
That's your word. It's not a word that I acknowledge or recognize as a meaningful word.
Then from what I understand you're saying then, if someone does not have the ability to be conscious, then they would not have a spirit or soul.
A human placenta is a genetical identical twin to the baby that it nourished. I don't think either of us would wish to say that it has a spirit or a soul because it doesn't have a brain.
I would say that's a good point, but this dumb bitch would probably name her placenta.
So if only a being that has a material, well, let me back up on that. It's the material, the matter, the brain, or the consciousness. Like, well, let me back there, because those are two separate things.
Let me back that up. No, let me back that up. Her poor little brain is struggling to make sense of things. Struggling, man. Chugga, 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 chugga.
Well, let me back up on that. It's the material, the matter, the brain, or the consciousness. Like, well, let me back there, because those are two separate things. I guess I'm confused in what you're saying, that a brain means you have a soul. A consciousness means you have a soul. But someone whose brain is not functioning, would they then not have a soul?
Someone who didn't have a brain that was capable of consciousness, somebody who was a human vegetable in effect, would not have the properties that you call a soul and that I might call a soul for the sake of argument, but I don't think it's immortal. That's the main difference between us.
And I think that's very key, because that then would work out in how you and I, or someone who believes like you do and someone who believes like I do, would treat someone who is in what's been called I think it's a horrible term, but a vegetative state. That we would still treat that human being as a person who's deserving of loving respect, that should be fed and cared for, even though they can't for themselves.
So what you're saying is that you think Dawkins or people that don't believe in souls would treat a handicapped person differently than you, because you think the handicapped person has a soul and was created by God that way or something. I mean, what the fuck is wrong with you? What the fuck is wrong with you? You're sitting there telling a man to his face that he would treat a handicapped child differently than you, simply because you disagree on whether the kid has a soul the way you define it or not. Fuck you.
How would you treat a chimpanzee who was in full command of her faculties?
Yes, and that's where we would differ. We believe that human beings have souls, have spirits, and that animals should absolutely are cared for. That's a great teaching that comes from our beliefs that we care for animals.
Take care of, sacrifice, same thing.
But we recognize that there's a difference between animals and humans, and one of the differences is a spirit.
Actually, I'm kind of surprised that the dummy could figure out that there are differences between animals and humans. She managed to figure that out, and that one of her pieces of evidence that they're different is humans have souls and animals don't. She can't really prove that, so I don't know how it's one of the main differences. I would have said something like, we use complex language, we have complex brains. On second thought, we don't all have complex brains. There are some of us that evolution seemed to have left behind. People like yourself, Mrs. Wright.
Wendy, you use the word we quite often for people who think like you. So would it be right that the CWA is part of a sort of wider constituency within America?
Yes, we represent 500,000 ourselves, but that's just a drop in the bucket of the number of people who believe similarly. And we find that as these challenges come up, say in school districts, that there are a number of parents and families and communities who will rise up in concern over the fact that only evolution is allowed to be taught, and not the questioning of evolution. So it's quite widespread in the United States. The belief that human beings are distinct is a widespread belief in the United States. And that's remarkable, because evolution has been so heavily taught in the last number of decades, and the fact that it's being taught so strongly and isolated from other information or evidence, and yet many people continue to believe that God has a hand in creating us, I think helps to show that people are using their critical factories. They're not just believing what's being taught in the schools, and that evolutionism is going to continue to have a bit of a challenge here in the United States and beyond.
You have doomed us, you dumb bitch. People like you have fucked us over. America's fucked if you are what we are to become.
I've been reading your website, and I get the feeling there's almost a feeling of sort of persecution. I mean, as though somehow you feel that the establishment in the United States is against Christianity. That puzzles me a bit, because, I mean, you know, you've got the White House, you've got the Supreme Court, you've got, well, you had both houses of Congress until quite recently. How can you feel persecuted in the face of this overwhelming Christian dominance in the United States?
Many Christians have experienced the hostility toward our beliefs, but beyond hostility, the attempts to even censor and punish us for our beliefs. And the price of liberty is eternal vigilance.
Her quote is, "The price of liberty is eternal vigilance." Well, that is quite different than the free will that you claim God gave us. It's all the same. She doesn't actually have to say that talk about the free will thing. She doesn't have to say anything about it, because we know what the entire creationist argument is already. Because we've hit this argument from every angle and every direction before, and they've deflected as best they can from every direction already. So we already know what our argument should be and what their counter argument will be. And we should just, you know, give up. I'm not going to give up. I have to finish this. I have to finish this, even though it probably will cause me, I mean, look at me, I'm graying here. I'm turning into an old man trying to do that. I'm Obama trying to deal with the Republicans, except I'm Cocktopuss trying to deal with fucking creationists.
That we must continue to fight for our freedom in order to have it. And even though some may believe that the three branches of government reflect our views, that's not necessarily the case. But let me give you my own experiences. A number of years ago, I was praying in public across the street from an abortion clinic and was sentenced to 6 months in jail for simply praying. It's these kinds of experiences.
Excuse me, you were sentenced to 6 months in jail for praying?
For praying.
Could we get a bit more detail about that?
Sure. A judge had signed an injunction stating that certain things could not be done within 100 feet of abortion clinics in that city, in Houston. And so 4 of us knelt and prayed across the street from the clinic, and the judge sentenced us to 6 months in jail and a $500 fine.
What law was that?
It was an injunction, and an injunction is essentially a judge-made law. It only applies to certain people. I was not named on the injunction, and yet the judge found me guilty of it. Thankfully, she was overturned by a higher court.
Let's just do us all a favor and ignore the actual, like, what happened with the actual praying and the injunction and what happened at the abortion clinic and all this kind of crap. And let's just focus on how great is your God if the country that you think he is blessed, God bless America, won't even allow you to pray to him to do the things you think he wills. You understand? Like, how about, you've got this thing where it's either, if God does something good, or you do something and you don't get punished, then it's in the Lord's name. But if you do something and you get punished, then you're just being persecuted. You're still doing it in the Lord's name. Oh, and it's just a test then. Otherwise, God wanted it that way. If God wants it, it happens. If he doesn't want it, then it's a test. And it just doesn't happen for you. It's sick the way that you guys twist things around. And I believe you are actually sick enough in the head to believe the lies you are telling yourself. Unfortunately for you, nobody else is buying into those lies.
But there are experiences like that throughout the United States where certain people are told and punished for acting out their beliefs. And it's those kinds of cases that make us very sensitive to protecting all of our liberties.
50 bucks says this bitch is against the Ground Zero Mosque. She's a fucking hypocrite. She's got a double standard. She's got an agenda to push, and she doesn't care about anyone but herself and the people that think like her. Fuck her. Fuck everyone like her.
I can't help feeling the context must have been. Had that abortion clinic been threatened with firebombing or anything like that?
No, it had none. It had not. There were protests that were going on during that time. Now, the abortion clinic had argued to the judge that women would be intimidated from coming into the clinic if there were protesters outside. Well, at the same time that 4 of us were quietly kneeling in prayer with no signs or anything like that, there were about 100 pro-abortion demonstrators in front of the clinic blocking the entrance, screaming and yelling with signs and bullhorns. But it was those of us who were quietly kneeling in prayer who were sentenced to 6 months in jail. So I think maybe you can understand then why we are so sensitive to wanting to protect our religious freedoms and the ability to act on our consciences, because we do have cases like this where people have been punished for acting on their beliefs.
First of all, you just admitted that you, in fact, weren't punished, that another judge overturned that ruling, so you weren't actually punished. So what the fuck are you talking about? Second of all, I guarantee that you would punish people of other beliefs for doing things or being, prejudiced against. You don't care about, I guarantee you, she doesn't care about Muslims being prejudiced against. She does not care about that. She is all for it, in fact, because it's another religion and it threatens the reality, how real her religion can be, because her religion can only be so real if there are so many different forms of it, right? Only one can be true. They can't all be right. So the more religions are out there, the more threatening it is to your own personal religion. You want to bash on every religion and atheism, and only you're right. God, how sad a life it is to sit there and defend your religion throughout, instead of accepting the facts, coming to terms with reality, just to sit there and defend the same bullshit your entire life. Doesn't it get old? I don't know. There's only one person I could think of to ask that question. Wendy, does it get fucking old to sit there and say the same bullshit over and over and over for the rest of your life, and you think that's going to get you into heaven somehow or some bullshit? It's really fucking pathetic. It's sad. I mean, really sad. I mean, I feel like I'm picking on a retard because you just don't fucking get it. And unfortunately, you cannot have the upper hand here. We have to say you are wrong. We have to prove you wrong. I have to point out the flaws in your arguments. I have to call you an idiot so that other people do not follow in your fucking retarded footsteps.
Yes, I can't comment on a particular anecdote like that, of course. Just want to come back one more time to the idea of teaching the controversy. In science, we're well used to controversy, and we have controversy all the time. Since Darwin's time, plenty of things that Darwin thought have now been shown to be wrong. I mean, Darwin was completely wrong about genetics, for example. And so there are modern controversies in Darwinism. There are controversies between people who think that natural selection is all important in driving evolution. And there are people who think that natural selection is only part of it, and that there are other things that drive evolution. Nobody seriously doubts the fact of evolution, but there are controversies about whether evolution is largely driven by natural selection or only partly driven by natural selection. For example, there are controversies about whether evolution goes smoothly and continuously, or whether it goes in jumps, whether there are sort of long periods where not much evolution happens, and then a rather sudden burst of evolution, which represent a kind of step in the fossil record. Those are genuine controversies, and of course it's extremely right and proper that children should be taught those controversies. But when you say teach the controversy, by which I think you mean the controversy between science on the one hand and probably biblical creation on the other, there are lots and lots of creation myths. I mean, the Genesis myth just happens to be the Babylonian Jewish myth, which for historical accident reasons is largely prevalent in the United States. But I mean, why not teach the Hindu myth that we're the product of a cosmic butter churn, or an Australian Aboriginal myth that we come from the dream time? Why pick on the Judeo-Christian Babylonian myth?
Well, we have argued when we say teach the controversies in evolution, and to teach the evidence that shows intelligent design. I'm not aware of people arguing that they ought to, that in public schools it ought to be taught the biblical accounts of creation.
Then you haven't been paying attention, dummy.
So what
really?
when we say teach the controversy, we mean teach all the evidence, including the evidence that goes against evolution, teach the evidence for intelligent design.
Who do you think the intelligent designer was?
Well, see, that's something that I think scientists can debate.
No, no, the idea of who the intelligent designer was cannot be debated by scientists. Do you understand? Scientists cannot debate about what color the teapot orbiting Pluto is. They cannot talk about these things because they don't have the facts or evidence in order to talk about them. That shit is made up by people like, oh, I don't know, religious people, creationists like yourself.
But the idea that there was an intelligent design to the process, in fact, what you've mentioned regarding even natural selection, and that there could be somebody or something that put all these laws in place that now the world is operating off of, does back up this idea that it was a being, an intelligent being, that caused all this, the whole world, to happen.
He asked you why you wouldn't want to teach every creation story instead of just the biblical story from Genesis. And your answer is that you, first of all, have never heard that it's just the biblical story trying to be taught. And that second, that science provides evidence that intelligent design is the truth simply because it has gaps in it, and therefore intelligent design is plausible, and therefore your idea of how we were designed is the truth, and that is the controversy you're trying to teach. You got to be fucking kidding me.
I mean, that's what a bishop might say. I wouldn't say that, but there are plenty of Christians who would say that. Wouldn't your life be a lot easier if you went along with the bishops and said the evidence in favor of the fact of evolution is overwhelming, so let's accept it and bring God in there?
I think one issue is this idea that we take orders from a hierarchy.
Okay, no,
and
fair.
There are some bishops that believe like you do, and there are other bishops that don't,
Yes.
that believe differently.
No.
And so it's easy to select those who believe like you do and rely wholly as if they speak for everyone.
Yes.
But those bishops don't speak for all Christian
okay, I mean,
leaders.
I accept that, and I would hate to suggest that you take orders from authority. I do wish you look at the facts a bit more, though. I mean, they are actually very interesting. I mean, you'd be fascinated. Just read a book.
Yes, I think, well, I find that to be quite demeaning to claim that we don't read books, or that we don't know what evolution is, when in fact most of us have been through the museums that you and your folks have put together.
Oh, you see, well, therefore, I can't hold you to any fault, because you and the people that believe like you have been through the museums that Dawkins and his folks have put together. You see, Dawkins and his folks, just like-minded people that believe in facts, evidence, scientific study, things like that. It's only them who put together the fucking museum that you then claim, oh, I walked through that museum one time, and I was too fucking retarded to understand what they were fucking trying to teach me. Therefore, that teaching doesn't fucking exist.
It probably would be helpful to the dialogue if the evolutionists were not so demeaning and degrading to others. And again, I kind of go back to perhaps that comes out of the philosophy of evolution, that some people are better than others.
So you don't think Christians are better than Muslims or atheists? Is that not a philosophy that comes from your religion and pretty much every fucking religion?
You said there was no evidence of intermediates in evolution, and I told you about 5 fossils.
And what I say, if that were and if those were valid, there would be tons of evidence, because there are so many different species that there ought to be tons of evidence, even let's say for 1% of the macro evolution that's taken place, there should be evidence. But there's not even 1%, let alone 10 or 50 or 70%.
Tell me, bitch, where is your 10 or 50 or 70% that God exists? Any God, much less your fucking specific God. It's fucking ridiculous. Yet again, her standards for science are fucking astronomical, but her standards for her own beliefs are almost non-existent.
There is a massive amount of evidence. You just need to go into the books and go into the museums and look at it. It's there.
Yes, and
You're believing people who are telling you there's only 1%.
Oh, and again I go back to,
1%.
oh, and again I go back to,
1%.
oh, and again I go back to, and again I go back to, and again I go back to, I go back to, I go back to. It's very demeaning to say that we only believe what we believe because we've been told that, and yet we have evolutionary scientists who want to be the ones to tell all of society what is fact and what's not fact, and to censor out information that is inconvenient.
Let's be honest here. Who is censoring out the facts that are inconvenient here? Is it Richard Dawkins or is it Wendy Wright? Let's take an honest look at it. Can anyone here that is actually a creationist or a Christian sit there and look at Wendy Wright and tell me that it is Richard Dawkins who is censoring out information and not her? You have to be out of your fucking mind. Who is this fucking retarded? This is a major problem, because this is not someone that is like retarded and just sits at home and writes YouTube comments. This is someone that is actually proactive in what our fucking kids are going to learn. Are you fucking kidding me?
Asking you to go and look at the facts. I don't want you to believe me. Just go and look at the facts.
Yes, and I have, and again I go back to, and again I go back to, and again I go back to. Let's look at the differences of what your philosophy lives out, the evolutionary philosophy, and how does that end up working out in a society.
Yeah,
For the last time, bitch, that is not an argument. Just because kids might be happier because they think Santa Claus is real does not benefit society in the long run. Do you fucking get it? I don't think you do. I don't think, you know, because the tooth fairy didn't put the money underneath your pillow doesn't make everything bad, okay? Maybe you need to get a hold of that. Grasp a hold of the facts. Your parents put the dollar or the 50 cents or the quarter or however cheap your fucking parents were, they put it under your fucking pillow. It wasn't a tooth fairy.
I've accepted that if we worked out society on Darwinian grounds, it would be a very, very unpleasant right-wing society. I've accepted that.
Well, I don't know right-wing. It seems to be that you fall back on ad hominem, name-calling.
May I remind you, you dumb fucking bitch, that it is not Dawkins who constantly says, and may I go back to, and may I fall back upon. He's not falling back. He hasn't done one single ad hominem attack the entire time. He's tried to educate you. Very fucking patiently, I might add. I don't have the same patience he does. I know that you're a retarded, stupid fucking bitch, and that even if I popped you across the fucking face and called you a retard, you still wouldn't fucking, it wouldn't sink in. Fuck you for being like, oh, well, you're just giving ad hominem attacks and that's all you can fall back on, when you haven't answered a single motherfucking question that he's asked. Fuck you, you disingenuous creationist fucking slut bitch.
All right, then, free market, ruthless trampling on the poor. That's what it would be like.
What I find interesting, though, is
a Darwinian society. I don't want a Darwinian society.
Communism was based on atheistic beliefs and evolutionary beliefs, and communism resulted in a decade that had more deaths, over 100 million deaths committed because of communism, than all the killings combined of every century prior to that. So when you talk about socialism, which is a close cousin to communism, being a better way of life, I look back on what beliefs was communism and socialism based on, and the atheistic belief that human beings are not distinct and should not be respected.
Oh my fucking god. Does it even need a response? It doesn't, does it? It's fucking, like, seriously, this is fucking gonna kill me to finish this fucking interview.
When you say distinct, do you mean distinct from each other, or do you mean when human beings are not distinct from each other? Is that what you mean?
Human beings are created as distinct from one another and should be treated with respect, even if they are not utilitarian, even if they are not able to provide something to society. The atheistic belief, the evolutionary belief, is that you're unnecessary and unneeded if you cannot provide something for society.
So what you're telling me, bitch, is that we think that anybody that is not absolutely essential for society should be, what, exterminated? Are you fucking kidding me? What is this fucking insane bullshit? Let me tell you what I think as an atheist. I think people like you are detrimental to society. I think you do nothing to improve society, and you just look for gaps and holes. I mean, you think there would be any kind of technology? You think that anybody would be interviewing you right now if it wasn't for the technology that science came up with? But you're just too fucking fucktarded to ever deal with anything like that. You're just in your own little la-la land, and it's scary. You know, yes, well, what I go back to is I'm a tard, and you'll have to explain that again. But when you explain it again, what I go back to is I'm still retarded, and so I still didn't explain. It didn't do me no good. You're just slightly more functionally retarded than the character I just played. You dumb fucking cunt.
That's an extraordinary thing to say. I mean, you equated atheistic with evolutionary. That means that's wiping out most of the bishops. They wouldn't take very kindly to that. I know
well, I've recognized that there are varying degrees within the evolutionary beliefs. It's the hardcore evolutionists that reject the idea of a creator that then pave the foundation for very brutal societies.
Well, I have accepted that if we were to base our societies on Darwinian principles, they would be brutal, harsh, and unpleasant. I have told you that I want not to live in a Darwinian society. I've suggested to you that it might be a good idea to learn something about Darwinism so as to know what to avoid in setting up society.
And it would be helpful to learn what are the characteristics that make successful and healthy society. And let's build on those characteristics.
I agree with that, and among those characteristics would be critical thinking, a respect for education, a respect for evidence.
And a respect for human beings.
And a respect for human beings, very much so.
Regardless of whether they can provide for society or provide something to society.
Yes, indeed.
This bitch does not seem to realize that, like, you know, atheists care about people. We care about society. We are not some kind of outsider force that is like, don't care about people. And we hate you if you care about people. You know, she's acting like the only people who can possibly care for other people who might not benefit society so much are what? They can't be anything but Christian. It's fucking ridiculous, considering that most Christians are right-wingers. And to say that right-wingers care more about people who need help than liberals is fucking retarded. It's something that someone says when they haven't looked at the issues at all.
The essence of the liberal philosophy which I espouse, that human beings should be respected, their health should be taken care of.
Even if they don't have a functioning brain that is conscious.
They should be given, their hospital care should be taken care of by the state. That's a liberal principle which I espouse. It's an un-Darwinian principle.
And see, I believe that it's not a state, because a state is an institution or an entity. It's human beings that provide care for others.
And she also believes that if you go to the doctor with a chicken, because you're a chicken farmer, that he's going to cure you of your cancer for a fucking chicken.
Well, okay, human beings provide care for others. None of that bears on the truth of whether evolution actually happened. And that is a matter of fact. It's like gravity. You can't get away from fact. Study the fact, learn the facts, and then make up the society that you want to live in on the basis of the facts as they are.
Yeah, and the facts that would include what makes the better society is one where there is deep respect for each human being, and a way to inculcate
deep respect for each human being.
And the way to inculcate respect for human beings is by seeing that they were created.
And there you have it. This bitch just admitted that without thinking that we are all created by a creator, she does not respect us. Human beings are nothing unless we are created by something higher, some bigger, higher power. We are just bullshit and should be treated as such. I mean, how fucking retarded are you? And you're gonna call us the immoral ones, that you have the fucking higher moral ground? Suck my dick.
So you would you
by a
actually
loving
distort the
creator.
scientific fact in order to create respect
There's
for
no,
human
there's no
beings?
need to distort, because as I mentioned, science is a technique, a tactic for discovering and unlocking the keys of how this world works. And so we don't need to deny any facts, because the facts end up bearing out our beliefs. So sometimes it takes time for science to catch up with the beliefs that have made the best societies.
Bitch, science improves these societies. The beliefs of the society does not matter. Okay, the beliefs of ancient societies, they thought that lightning was when God was angry. Okay, now does that hold any bearing in today's society? No, because science has explained it. We don't need to make bullshit up to fill in the gaps like you are trying to do. The funny thing about you fuckers is that the gaps keep getting smaller, but your arguments for them keep getting bigger and bigger. It's it's the only way for your bullshit to survive. The only way for you to stay in fucking happy land is for you to make bullshit up and try and pass it off as fact. And we're not buying it, bitch.
Sometimes it takes a while for science they may stumble across something and take the wrong interpretation from it, and build a philosophy on it, and then later realize, oops, that wasn't correct.
Unlike religion, which builds up something, realizes it's false, and says, fuck it, we gotta stick with it now. We already told the lie. We can't admit we were fucking lying. We can't admit any mistakes. It's all gotta be fucking truth, no matter what. And we gotta find as many excuses to explain away the fucking false bullshit in our religion as we can. Like, and then we're gonna hire people like Wendy motherfucking Wright to try and make us look like we're, what, not retarded? You're fucking failing.
So science oftentimes changes its own beliefs based on new evidence that comes forward. But oftentimes what ends up happening is, as science progresses, it backs up the belief that there's an intelligent designer.
You look like a fool. You are sitting there telling us that science changes when it learns new things. Like that's a fucking bad thing. Because your religion doesn't. Your religion cannot change. It is stuck. It was written that way and it cannot change. Oh, unless, of course, you all agree that, like, you know, we should leave this part out and consider that, you know, leave out the part about eating shellfish as abomination, but continue propagating the being homosexual is an abomination, and therefore it is against the Bible, and therefore you should not be able to do it, while I sit there and eat my lobster and shrimp.
Science proceeds by what the philosopher Karl Popper called conjectures and refutations. So, you have an idea, you have a hypothesis, and then you see if you can refute it. And a theory is, I mean, a well-substantiated theory is always one that has yet to be refuted. So the more a theory has been attempted to be refuted and has yet to come through with flying colours, the more accepted it is. And after a point, de facto, it gets called a fact. After, I mean, the theory that the Earth goes round the Sun is only a theory. It's only a theory, but it's never been refuted, and we all know it never will be refuted. That's how science proceeds. It's conjecture and refutation. That's the state that evolution is in. I mean, it's a bit like the theory that the Earth goes around the Sun. It is only a theory, but to a scientist, that can mean, in this case does mean, that it's never been refuted. And the more it goes on from decade to decade to decade and is not refuted, the more closely does it approximate to what everybody calls a fact.
I can promise you that she either did not understand that or understood it and is just going to keep on denying. Denial, it's not just a river in fucking Africa.
Then an evolutionist should have no problem with there being questioning of it and
Absolutely not. I mean,
challenging
no.
of it,
You're
and to
right.
be willing to teach the challenges to it, to be willing to talk about the evidence against it.
Just like Christians are so willing to have a science teacher or an evolutionist or an atheist come and talk to their Sunday school congregation, right? Just like they have atheists in church to talk about why there is no God. or why it's stupid to believe in a God, right? And you should be supporting this. You know, you have to support the challenges, teach the challenges, teach the controversy, you fucking cunt.
And that's where I find the hardcore evolutionists have a bit of a problem. It's like an oak tree in a storm. Because it is so rigid, it's more likely to then fall and break. Whereas those that are more open to being challenged can then bend with the facts that come forward.
If the science behind evolution is like a rigid oak tree, then the, you know, science behind your religion and the bullshit you believe is like a flaccid fucking penis, okay? The fact that you think it's so great to be able to bend and sway and change all the time, because that's what you do. You know, the Bible talks about slavery, and slavery is no longer cool, so you just bend with it. You're like, oh, but that was back then, that's, you know, not now, and, you know, things were different back then, like foot baths were really cool back then, they're not so cool anymore, you have to bend and sway, and that's how religion works.
So that's why what many of us in the United States are arguing for: teach the controversies in the schools. Allow the information that shows the flaws in evolution to be taught. Don't blackball scientists who may not agree wholeheartedly with the hardcore version of evolution to be blackballed out of the profession. Allow people to have enough respect for people to allow them to have all the information so they can make up their own minds.
All right, for the fucking like 50th time, this is not an issue of people making up their own minds. That's not how science works. Science isn't like, well, the majority of people believe this, so this is true, or something shit like that. Science cannot bend, or it can teach what it knows. And if there are challenges, the challenges aren't given to fucking laymen or high school science students. They're fucking given directly to the scientists to test against their fucking theory. That's what you do. When a theory is challenged like that, you fucking directly challenge the theory. You don't just say the shit to a bunch of people and hope that raises enough doubt that they can then discredit the entire fucking thing and all of science with it. You fucking bitch. You just fucking retarded. Here, let Dawkins do it. He does it so much more nicely than I do.
Difficult question, this thing about blackballing. I mean, it's a nasty idea to blackball, of course. I mean, what about somebody who's teaching geography, who believes in the flat Earth? I mean, would you blackball them?
Well, always extreme cases are used. That's not what we're facing here in the United States. What we're facing are scientists who may not agree wholeheartedly with the hardcore view of evolution, who do believe in intelligent design. They're being denied their careers. They're being denied. So it's better to argue from the facts of what's happening rather than some hypothetical.
The motherfucking queen of hypotheticals says it's better to argue about the facts, not the hypotheticals. Fuck you, you fucking dumb, golden retriever-looking, dim-witted bitch.
Okay, let's take intelligent design. I mean, the leading intelligent design proponents in this country believe in evolution. They believe that we're cousins of chimpanzees, we're cousins of kangaroos, etc. But what they don't believe is that God is completely absent from the process. So they believe in evolution, but they believe that God, as it were, helped evolution over the difficult jumps. There are some things that they call irreducibly complex, which, and scientists dispute that they're irreducibly complex, but the point is they do believe in evolution. They do believe that we're descended from reptiles, for example. Well, it's just that they think that God helped over certain of the difficult stages.
Mm-hmm. So it would be wonderful to interview them and let them speak for themselves, present their information and their evidence.
Yes.
And to show that there are a variety of views. And that's why the hardcore evolutionists should not have a monopoly on what is allowed to be discussed or researched in science.
What would you have them do? Give out research grants to people who are like, I'm going to prove the pink unicorn exists underneath at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, and I need, you know, $50 billion in order to fucking research it and prove it correct. You fucking dummy. They shouldn't have a monopoly on teaching facts, things that we know. Oh, that they should be able to, everyone should just be able to put in their 2 cents about fucking, well, I think a princess kissed a frog, and that's how we all got here.
Would you accept, well, nobody's going to make any restriction on what you're allowed to research, of course.
Well, that's done, of course, through funding, through grants, through positions at universities. There are ways to restrict what can and can't be researched.
I mean, funding of scientific research is always a problem, and all scientists have a time when they grumble about not getting funding. I mean, you do have to, you're competing in a marketplace, and the NSF and other grant-giving bodies have to give money where peer review suggests it's going to be most useful. I mean, that is definitely a problem, of course. Would you accept that what you call teaching the controversy should be done in classes of religion or classes of history of ideas, rather than classes of science?
Teaching the controversy refers to teaching the evidence and the facts that dispute evolution. So it should be taught in the science classes because it's teaching evidence.
Keep in mind, this is the same bitch that says that there is no evidence of transitional fossils. And she's gonna fucking build up the little nerve she's got to sit there and say that they should teach the controversy because that's teaching evidence. She wants to ignore actual scientific evidence and relabel evidence as just the stuff that I want to be taught. That's what evidence is. That's what proof is. Fuck you, bitch. Wendy Wright, you blonde dummy, fuck you.
Yes, I mean, when I asked you about evidence, you said there are no fossil intermediates, and when I told you about fossil intermediates, you changed the subject. I mean,
no, when I don't change the subject, what I say is that if there were, if there had been evolution from slime to human beings, that there'd be a massive amount of evolution. If there was evidence of going from slime to human beings, there'd be a massive amount of evidence showing interspecies, from one macro species to another. And that's where I find the concept of evolution lacking.
Wendy Wright thinks that evolution is lacking because she hasn't seen any dogs turn into cats lately. She hasn't seen a crocodile give birth to a duck. She's fucking so mind-numbingly stupid. God, I don't know if I can make it to the end of this.
And so the burden really is on the evolutionists. Oftentimes it's been thrown back at us that we just need to look at the information. But let me throw it back on you all to say, look, this is what's needed to convince us. So you need to come up with a large amount of evidence to back up this claim that there's been a large progression of macroevolution throughout the years.
yes.
No, what we need to do is ignore morons like you. What we need to do is realize that fucktards like you will never fucking get it. It's been explained to you over and over. The evidence has been shown to you, and you literally do like one of these. You don't want to fucking deal with it. There's no point in fucking trying to convince you when you are too stupid and in too much of denial to ever accept the goddamn fucking evidence in the fucking first place. So you go with this, teach the controversy, and you try and tell us that we ignore evidence, but it's your job to supply the evidence for us to ignore. Fucking
How are we going to make you look at it there? Because, I mean, I've told you...
Well, no, we look at it. We look at it. Again, when I go back to, it's easy to blame the other person, to blame by saying that we're ignorant. But what I'm saying to you is, if there were enough evidence, it would convince even, it will convince those who are open to the information.
It will convince those who are willing to look at the information, otherwise known as not this bitch.
There's such a vast number of people in the United States and elsewhere who do believe in an intelligent design, that there's a creator. If there was a vast amount of evidence, solid evidence to back up evolution, that would influence a significant number of the vast number of people who believe in intelligent design.
That sends me close to despair, because the evidence is there. I mean, I keep telling you about it. No, just let me tell you some of it. There is evidence of, for example, the transition from fish coming out of the water onto the land. It's beautiful evidence. It's elegant. I mean, they're lovely fossils. Go to Philadelphia and have a look at the wonderful fossil they've got there. I'm sure they have replicas in the Smithsonian here. Just look at that evidence. It's beautiful. The evidence for the transition between the reptilian jaw and the mammalian jaw. The reptilian jaw has several bones. The mammalian lower jaw has only one bone. And the other bones that were in the reptile have now moved into the inner ear. It's a beautiful transition.
We're ignorant.
Oh, we know.
What is your cause in life? I would think that if your cause was to convince others that evolution is correct, not just a theory, but a fact, then you'd be devoting yourself to finding this information and making it readily available. What I find is that you're spending a lot of time arguing with me, trying to convince me, instead of showing the evidence or spending your time producing evidence.
He's already given you evidence. You have fucking readily ignored it. And then you turn around and say, where's the evidence? And you're like, I'm like, where's the beer? And you're like, you just drank some. And I'm like, where's the beer?
Was I not just telling you about fish that are intermediate between the sea?
But again, what I go back to is if there was a large enough amount of evidence, which there should be, if we have gone from slime to human beings, there should be an overwhelming amount of evidence, not these isolated cases that could be interpreted differently.
But if God created the earth and the universe, there shouldn't be any evidence at all. In fact, there should be evidence to the contrary. Fucking super genius, this Wendy Wright, I'm telling you.
And, see, one problem that evolutionists have is that in the past, when there's been great acclaim of a discovery to show from one species to another, it's been proven to be fraudulent.
She asks for like a vast amount of evidence, and when it's handed to her, she literally handpicks like the fucking 3 fucking fraudulent cases of proof of and evidence of evolution. She handpicks those, and she's like, and see, they're all like that. Talk about someone who doesn't actually have any fucking facts to back what they are saying up. She's got 3 little instances, and it wasn't creationists who found out that they were fucking fraudulent in the fucking first place. It was fucking scientists, you fucking cunt.
So evolutionists have a problem in their own history. The fact that there have been so many cases of fraud or misinterpretation of information.
Unlike religion, which has never had a single case of fraud or a single fucking misinterpretation.
But now we have a problem believing what you say.
There was the Piltdown Man in the 1920s. I suggest we forget about the 1920s and look at today. Go and look at some modern paleontology labs. Go and talk to some modern paleontologists. Go and talk to the people who are looking at the transition from fish to amphibians. Go and look at the fossils about the human transition. Look at the evolution of the horse. Look at the evolution of the elephant. There are evolution of the whale. There are so many beautiful stories. I mean, you'd be fascinated. You would think that these fossil histories are to the greater glory of God if only you go and look at them.
Would it make you happy if we were to agree that there is some evidence regarding macroevolution? Would that alone make you happy, or would you still be unhappy and feel that your cause is unsuccessful if many of us still believe that there's an intelligent being who caused this to happen?
It would make me enormously happy. I would love it. If you said, yes, 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 evolution is obviously a fact, I accept evolution, but God did it. I mean, that wouldn't, I mean, I wouldn't agree with that, but it would make me hugely happy. At least you looked at the evidence.
And I don't understand why that's so important to you.
My master made me this collar so that I may talk, squirrel. Hi there.
Of course you don't understand why it's important to a scientist that fucking some retard would understand the very slowly explained fucking evidence and very patiently explained proofs of the theory of evolution. Which, of course, you're like, it's just a theory. And let me ask you something, Wendy. Why is it so important to you that people believe as you do? Because you are spending just as much time denying the shit and trying to get schools to teach the controversy and all that shit as Dawkins is trying to educate your dumb ass.
that I believe exactly like you believe?
No, it's not important to me. I am an educator, I'm a scientist, I'm a university professor, I teach. I love it when people see the beauty of nature, the beauty of evidence, and just look at it and appreciate how elegant it is. It really is beautiful. Go look at it.
What is the danger in believing in an intelligent designer?
First thing that comes to mind is teaching people to deny facts if they contradict what the people want to believe, okay? You can't deny that there are people starving just because it's an uncomfortable thought to you, okay? Fucktard.
I don't think that's a danger. Well, as an atheist, which I am, a very strong atheist, I have a quite separate agenda. That is an agenda, but it's not my agenda as a science educator. I'm now talking purely as a scientist and a science educator, and I am distressed that somebody as intelligent as you is refusing to look at the evidence.
And what is your agenda as an atheist? Because that is going to influence the work that you do.
Projecting much, bitch? Because you are a creationist, and that is going to affect the work that you do. What's your fucking Christian agenda?
Well, I like to think it's not, actually, but whatever I might say about that, I've done another television program about that, and I was a very strong atheist in that program. This program is about Darwin, and there are many Darwinians who are not atheists, and all I'm talking about now is the factual evidence, and I'm suggesting to you that you might do a better job for your religion if you would open your mind to the factual evidence and realize that actually you could use the genuine scientific factual evidence to the greater glory of your God rather than running away from the evidence.
But again, that's where we differ. We don't believe we are running away from the evidence.
I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
And what we are seeking to do is to help people to understand who God is, that He's a loving God, and part of His love toward us is that He created us, the fact that He wanted us to exist.
Maybe and He did it via evolution, though.
And,
Squirrel!
I didn't really think about that before.
Helping people to understand that there's a God who's created order in this universe, and that there are certain, as you've mentioned, laws in this universe. That even includes moral laws of how we are to treat one another.
Let's have some examples of God's moral law. How much should you sell your daughters for slavery for, when you can own slaves? That the God that created you as a homosexual, possibly, hates you as a homosexual.
The work that we're working toward is helping people to understand these moral laws and live according to these moral laws, because not only will they benefit living healthier and happier lives, but our society will as well.
Calling society a bunch of immoral scumbags that need your God's moral laws in order to be moral is fucking offensive. Fuck you. You're not doing us any fucking favors. You're making us stupider, if anything. Thanks a fucking lot.
And so, each of the work that we do through Concerned Women for America is toward that end. Now, you have your own cause. You're going to devote your life to that. And I would hope that you could respect and appreciate the work that we're doing to help make society a better place by helping people to understand the moral laws not only exist, but they're the best for each one of us and as a society.
Have you ever told a lie? Did you ever have Nazis come to your door while you were hiding Jews in your attic and you had to lie and tell them Jews weren't there? Well, you're going to hell, you son of a bitch. It's a moral law. I'm fucking morally superior to you.
And you can go to sleep at night happy, hopefully, knowing that we're being successful in our work, because it will make a better society, one that Darwin's beliefs would not have made.
Yes, well, I've gone into that, haven't I? I agree with you that Darwinian beliefs would not make for a good society. I've said they'll make for a bad
And what's
society.
lacking, as you've mentioned, what's lacking is
Squirrel!
what's lacking in Darwin needs to be made up with somewhere else. The fact that Darwinian is would lead to such a harsh and brutal life means that there's a great need for other people to be making this world a better place.
Yeah, but
and
if
that's
it's true,
that's
I mean,
what we are working on. And even though I may not agree like you do, hopefully you can appreciate the work that we're doing to make society a better place.
Thanks, Wendy Wright, for making our society a dumber place, for challenging the scientific leaps and bounds that we've been making in understanding where we came from, and just going, God did it. Thanks a fucking bunch. Congratulations to anyone who's made it through this incredibly fucking facepalm-worthy video series. Congratulations. I don't know what else to say. Take your hand off your dick for a second and pat yourself on the back.